Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank. This is NLL Lacrosse Talk, where we talk about the NLL and the rest of lacrosse. We just had a great end to a season, but we're going to talk more about, I guess you could say, a social aspect of lacrosse. And we're with Miles General. Miles, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for asking. How are you guys doing today?
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Very good. Thank you. Well, Miles, first of all, I'm not being specific about that stick, but how did you pick up a lacrosse stick, the first one you picked up?
The first stick I picked up, well, excuse me there for that. I actually didn't pick up a stick until I was living in Ottawa. Around 5 years old, my dad got a job with the government in Ottawa, and so we moved there. And while we were there, you know what I mean, Akwesasne wasn't too far from there, so a team called Nepean. Nepean wasn't as grown up as it is now. Had a team, and that's where I started playing. And so I was 5, and I really, I took to the sport. And so that was my first experience with lacrosse. It was in Ottawa, actually. So.
Yeah, Nepean was a place where a lot of the employees of government live.
Yeah.
I know the area. I worked in the area for a short time.
Yeah.
So you picked up a stick, and now you're. Miles, explain what you represent and what's the goal of the organization that you're a part of.
What I represent? Oh, geez, you mentioned this stick here. Do you mind if I tell you a little bit of a story about it?
You got the mic. You got the mic.
It actually kind of even almost falls in line with it. I'll sum this up as quickly as I can. What got me going in the direction we're doing with that. So the direction to answer your question is we have a group called Seven Sticks Men's Mental Health and Addiction Circle, and I'm a co-founder of that, along with a gentleman by the name of Austin Stotts. And both of us basically fell into a really negative cycle that's impacted our people here in our community as a result of the cultural genocide that has impacted our people with the intergenerational trauma. So that's a pretty heavy statement there. There's a lot there. And so let's answer your question is that's the main thing there, that we're working on right now. And, we use lacrosse as a platform, and we use our real, it's just as, honestly, Seven Sticks, it's a grassroots, culturally grounded men's mental health and addiction circle that, that we developed here within our community, based on the struggles and, the real life lived experience that we've had. You know what I mean? And we're really, really boots on the ground. You know what I mean? Last night was our 79th meeting, or the 79th game 79. Actually, I haven't even put it away yet. If you can see my board there, game 79. So at that game, we always give thanks. That's what part of our teachings is. We have what they call a Thanksgiving address, of which I had the tremendous privilege and opportunity to give at the Elise Herbeski Memorial Lacrosse Tournament this past year. By giving thanks, to each other as human beings, to Mother Earth, to water, to fish, to the plants of life, the food plants, the medicine keepers, the four-legged animals, the trees, the birds, the four winds, our eldest grandfather, the thunders, our eldest uncle, the sun, our eldest grandmother, the moon, and our ancestors, the stars, our enlightened teachers, and so Gohondiso, our great spirit there. And, and then we go into discussion. Here's actually one right now. Last night, we were game 79, Seven Sticks versus resentment. Resentment's one of the key, if not one of the number one, provokers of a relapse. And so, I went into how the definition of resentment is different in recovery. Here are three. that are often used in 12-step type programs, and then we go through it, we talk about it, and we check in, and it's a really, really impactful group. I didn't know we were going to start with that. It's almost kind of the finish of where we were. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. And to date, we've had 39 men, come through our dressing room door and join our team. And we've had 3 women, come. It's a men's group, but they had impactful statements to say that they wanted to share. There was some apprehensive and some naysayers and some obstacles at the beginning with some of the people considering, the nature of my co-founder's charges. There were some serious ones, but there's a lot to this, and there's a lot to life, and people change, and people can recognize, and it's taking that accountability and taking the accountability, like it's recognizing the mistake, being accountable for it, learning how to fix it, and then working together to fix it. And I don't mean to talk so much, but I could just go on and on about this.
That's okay.
Please, no, please.
I can
No.
I can help in for the viewers out there, simplify it a little bit. The lacrosse game is the creator's game, and lacrosse in this situation, I would say that you're using it, or you're being used, and the lacrosse stick is being used as the creator's hand in helping people, a hand up, a way to resolve all the different issues that I'm aware of, because I'm part of a legion, and I'm trying to start a legion that's going to be very it's going to be very Aboriginal based, native based. It's going to be because of where I am. I'm in Wasaga Beach. The first war of 1812 was fought with the help of the Métis and other peoples, right? It was when we unified the British and all the sorry, I'm struggling now.
No worries.
We all get together to fend off the Americans, and now we have a legion, and we have a place called Nancy Island, where we are honoring the all the native fighters, veterans, along with the British as well.
Yeah.
What happens in every fight? There are injuries, and I guess I'm just struggling to try and get to the point here. The point is very simple. What you're identifying is there are issues that happen, even though maybe only one bad thing happens, it splinters into so many bad things because different people are affected differently by the same event or the same challenge, right? Which is why it's nice that you have that stick, because that stick is like a basket, and it tries to catch all the problems, and you try to deal with them. Our love of lacrosse and the creator's game and the players and what you do. So now you can keep talking. I was trying to do it a shorter way, but I was just terrible. I was just all over the place. And I was referring to indigenous peoples, right? Who are an important factor where I live, where I am from, and what I love covering for the past 30 some odd years, which is lacrosse. So I was just in a meeting about that. So I'm continuing this conversation about the challenges of being indigenous and how the recovery is long-term, because it wasn't a short-term problem.
No, and well, thank you for that. And thank you for those words and trying to start that group with, especially being Indigenous based. Stats are actually proven that Indigenous based and grassroots based organizations are actually having more effect statistically. Do you know what I mean? Rather than some of the bigger ones, so, and that's what we are. We're basically boots on the ground. You know what I mean? We've only actually got one contribution, and that was from the Cal Smith Foundation, a player that, lost a man that lost his life here, so we're very happy to have gotten that from the Smith family. And, you talk about different things like that intertwining of community. You talked about the stick and holding the, you know what I mean? Like the game and that. And I was going to tell you earlier about this stick here. It's a few years ago, I'm 55 now. And a few years ago, on my 50th birthday, there was a little bit of COVID going on still, but we were going to have a birthday party, and I wanted to have a lot of my grandkids here, friends here, and have a a big game out on the front yard here. I got a tremendous lacrosse setup out there, you know, and so I was on my way to get a stick made at the ILA here, where I actually have the 7 Sticks, you know, men's mental health and addiction circle. And I was on my way to see Jason Johnson. We played on in a mental cup team. We won in a man cup team together, and just we're actually some of our children are together. So anyway. Long story short, I was going to get this stick made, an orange head with light brown runners, with orange boot lace, and white throwing strings. And so I'm telling my foreman at our plant, Wayne Hill, like Warren Hill's brother from the Thunderbirds. So I'm telling Wayne, you know, this is what I'm going to get made. I'm going to see Jason. You know, my party's tomorrow. I hope to see you there. And he's looking at me. He's just like, 1 second. He walked to his truck. He come back in and he said, "Happy birthday. This is the stick that I had made for you." I'm almost crying telling you that story. Like, you know what I mean? And it sounds like that.
He was stopping you to make it because he already did.
Yeah, he already had this stick made. So this stick I carry with me everywhere I go. Like I'm no saint. Just like I was on a lacrosse floor. I'm no saint. And I don't claim to be, you know, and I made a lot of mistakes in life, and I hurt a lot of people. And you know, I ended up going to jail for a few years. And you know, I did 2 years less a day. And you know, it was really something that opened my eyes. And you know, part of the sentencing that I had, there's so much I could go into. Like part of the sentencing I had was suggested that I go to, you know, to some facility that could help me with my addiction. And so I ended up at the Ontario Correctional Institute. And so I spent about half of my sentence there. And there, you know what I mean? I really started to learn about myself. You know what I mean? And it was there that I, you know, and I'm not stupid, and I'm not saying I'm a genius either, but you know what I mean. But I pay attention, and I've done well. And you know, I paid attention to what I was seeing in there, and when I seen the change in some very bad men, you know what I mean. I'm not a gambling guy, but I pushed my chips all in, so to speak. You know what I mean. And I start talking to some of these guys, because there are a lot of people, I ain't gonna lie, that I didn't get along with in there. You know, sex offenders. You know, drug deal. Like it was, you know, it was hard in there, you know. But identifying the people that were real, the people that were there to really work on themselves is what I did, and then to become one of them. You know, I bought in, you know, recognizing my thought patterns, you know, recognizing what had happened in my life, and you know, and learning how to be accountable for them. You know, learn how to really figure them out. And, you know, reading books that like a doctor by the name of Gabor Mate wrote, who I base a lot of the principles of what I do. I was actually supposed to, you know, like anyway, that's another story. But, you know, just the principles that he has, you know what I mean, on trauma, you know, because as he says, trauma is not what happens to you. It's what happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you.
Right.
You know, and getting people, myself included, to understand that. You know, it is very key. And coming out of there, you know what I mean? Like I learned, I sucked as much out of that place as I could. Like once I seen it was working, then I thought, what is this? So much so that I even got asked to write an audit there of what could be implemented, what could be extracted, where more emphasis could be put, you know? And then this is no shit, you know, like, and then they almost let me out to go watch my mentor, Vince Paywis, receive the Meritorious Medal of Canada, just under the Order of Canada at Parliament Hill. You know, I would have went there in orange, you know, shackles and handcuffs, but I still would have been there. And even now, like it was like, there's so much that's happened, you know, like I was out of jail, not even, I'd say about 6 months, and Corrections Canada came after me and said, "Would you like to come to work here?" And it's mandated that you be out of incarceration a minimum of a year before you even apply for a job.
Right.
But that's the influence that they seen just while I was there. And so much has happened. Like, and then last year was their 50th anniversary. 50th anniversary, and I was the only ex-inmate that they invited back to speak. You know, and to know that I had that much of an impact on that institution as an inmate, you know what I mean? It fueled me. And then this is no lie, like the stuff that I wrote on the chalkboard over 10 years, 11 years ago now, was still on there. I had written the Thanksgiving address, and I kind of got unique handwriting. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And they took me there after revamping the whole place, painting it, taking out the asbestos. They brought the chalkboard, and the chalkboard was still as I freaking left the thing. Can you imagine? You know, like, and then like to become a native inmate liaison officer. And I ain't lying. I don't have the best pass. You know what I mean? I've done some things. So these criminals like myself could get on the horn and they could find out, hey man, this guy's legit. You know, and that gives me a different level of intimacy with them.
Yep.
And by intimacy, I'm not talking sex and getting laid or nothing like that.
No
I'm
credibility.
talking, hey Gary, how's it going?
Yep.
Level 1 of intimacy. Hey,
Well,
Gary,
having them to be able to relate to you is important.
exactly. Level 2. Hey Gary, how's it going? How was your flight back from Prague? Now we're under the 3rd level of intimacy already.
Right.
You know, just with that. You know, so and teaching these guys that there, and then coming out, you know what I mean, and then really having that opportunity. And then I thought, what can I do here? What can I do here to prevent guys like me going to jail? And so I asked my mentor, and I started a group. It was actually called 6 Miles. I even got something around here. Oh, here it is. Yeah. So 6 Miles. 6 Miles Inspiring Friends. And that was my first group, and it was a co-ed group. You know what I mean? Men and women.
Yep.
And I ran that one for 2.5 years. And there are still 5 people that are still sober from that. Can you imagine? You know, going on 6 years of sobriety. You know what I mean? Like it's amazing. And then, you know, I took a couple of years off because some things happened within my family. You know, I think and this is a true story. Like, if you want me to keep going, I can, about how I started this, because it's actually a good story. You know,
Absolutely.
I'm a papa bear. I got 9 grandkids, so you know. But so I come out. I'm starting to work within the institutions. I'm starting to figure out what can I do here, even to build my own jail here. You know, what can I do to make things different here? And I'm proud to say that I have now created the SMRRC, which is a 6 Miles Rehabilitation and Reconciliation, capital A, Center, where convicted Indigenous men from our community can come serve their sentence alternatively to a federal or a provincial institution.
Wow.
All while gaining the cultural grounding, employment opportunity, certification, working with Grand River Employment and Training. You know what I mean? Living in a microhome, which they have the opportunity to take with them, you know, when they finish their sentence with me, so that they have affordable housing, you know. Like, it's been amazing. And I got off track there, but you know, that's the first group there, the Rehabilitation Center, which is another aspect of what we're doing with healing. And then and I you know, so I was primarily working on that, getting that going, and then the Man Cup was here, you know, and you know, and it was you know, 2024, and we were hosting it. And you know, I had made a sculpture that, you know, for the tournament, and that I presented to Kurt Stiers to keep at the ILA, and it's called Little Brother of War, actually, you know, lacrosse, and so this is how Seven Sticks got going. This is how Seven Sticks got going. You know, I'm sitting in the crowd. Me and my dad, Dave General. He's a 2-time Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Famer, you know, in both builder and team. And And we're watching the game, and to be honest, we were kind of the Chiefs were going to get beat up on the left side, and then, Messenger, he's a physical player. He's sending these messages and nobody's really answering back. And I'm like, what's going on? And then game 2 comes around, and, first period's going on. We're getting beat up again. And so at intermission, I messaged Johnny, JT, who coaches the Chiefs. I said, where's Austin? And he says, in jail, ... again. And I read it, and I was just like, that boy's going down the same road I went 30 years ago. And I thought to myself, how do we stop this? You know what I mean? Because this is a shame. This is a shame, because I recognize it. All the stuff that I've done with mental health, addiction, that negative cycle that's impacted us through the cultural genocide of residential schools, the fracturing of families. Gary wanted to touch on some stuff about how the game was and how the racism was in the game. Like I remember one time there was a fight. I got my teeth put right through my lip in Owen Sound. You know what I mean? Right through. I could hear this fan beaking out, geez, you can bleed good night, all this stuff, saying going back to the reservation and bleed, wagon burners, all this stuff. I got out, and I remember Les Wakeling, our coach at the time, and my dad. And he sent Darius and Rich and over to talk to me and, calm down, but it was all right. I was mad, like it was, the things that you say, like the detrimental effect. And I was actually really a pivotal voice as a teen for when Oka was going on. Mm-hmm. Like you're talking to a guy, that we won the 92 Minto Cup. And, I had no disgrace to Canada or whatever. I didn't even take my helmet off when that national anthem was played. We were playing in the wake of Oka. You know what I mean? When I was standing on that line, playing that Minto Cup, whew, I was playing for far more. I wasn't playing for that Minto Cup. I was playing for Native people across this country that had suffered. You know what I mean? I had been that voice in high school, talking about how our people were treated and how we are, why we are the way we are. I was privileged enough to, I know this sounds bad, be a part of such a negative cycle that I seen it. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm so passionate about what we do now. And so this is the truth. I went up north. I drove up north to go moose hunting because I had some things on my mind and I really needed to sort them out. Weren't good things. And I was on my way back and I called Mr. Kurt Steyers, owner of the ILA, owner of the Thunderbirds, took me to pick up my first male championship ring in Buffalo. You know what I mean? And I called him and I said, Kurt, I want to start something. I'd love to start an addictions meeting. I'd like to use lacrosse as a base for it. And I'd like to do it at the ILA in one of the dressing rooms there. And he granted me that permission. And he told me this, Miles. He said, Miles, he goes, of course, we talked and he goes, keep it consistent. Keep it real. And, I'll never forget that. And to this day, that's it. We are real as it comes. We talk about some things and you know what I mean? I've had discussions about mostly Austin, you know what I mean? With some of the things, charges and whatnot. But you know what? I tell people, I tell coach, you know what I mean? I say, you know what? I wouldn't, if it was game 7 of the Man Cup, there's no other guy I'd want standing beside me than him. If I was a coach going into that game 7 of a Man Cup game, there's no other player that I'd want in front of me. It's hard to get that kind of depth without life experience, and then I heard that and it's echoed over and over again, whether it be in a trade of iron worker that I love, as a tradesman, whether it be in lacrosse, listening to guys like Kevin Alexander, Derek Keenan, listening in that dressing room, being like sitting in a dressing room with your idols, You know what I mean? I couldn't even tell you what it was like sitting there. You know what I mean? Listen to Kevin Alexander talk. You know, listen to Derek Keenan talk. Jimmy Veltman. You know, young Johnny Taveras piping up. You know, then full force Darius Kilgore. You know what I mean? Like just depth. And then Randy Mearns. You know, just Richie Kilgore. Just, you know, those two guys, just the clear and conciseness that they could execute what needed to be said in that dressing room. Do you know what I mean? Like Darius brought the passion. Do you know what I mean? You know, we're talking about the Chiefs team. Like, look at that team. Do you know what I mean? Like we practiced against the best and we practiced hard. How do you not get better, you know, playing offense, you know, with those guys and playing defense against, you know, Brian Shanahan, you know, Bob Henry, you know, Tim Bomberry, like guys that are going to, you know, Dave Suckermore, you know, Stevie Fennell at the time, you know, guys that are going to knock you on your butt, you know. So so I got off topic there. That's how the meeting started. And this is the key part to it. So I called up Austin and I asked him, I said, I'd like to go for a drive. And I told him what I'd like to start. You know, I wasn't going to start it with him unless he was honest with me. And so I asked him some really, really difficult questions. Difficult ones. Questions that I already knew the answers to. But he answered them honestly. And it was that honesty that paved the way for what we have today. You know, currently we're active in 5 courts. We've been active in 5 circle sentencing hearings with positive outcomes.
Right.
And you know, participate in 2 local hospitals, McMaster's Kids Hospital and Brantford General Hospital, you know, called in as elders type, mentor type facilitators there to help. And you know, just to see the change in some guys, and you know, you don't win them all, just like lacrosse.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And you know, we lost a guy this past year, you know, and you know, we've had some relapses as well. But you learn from those, just like lacrosse. A few games ago, I should dig up a few games ago, we were having a meeting there, and one of the team members, he said to me, he said, we should get our own board made up, because I have one in the dressing room that we use to write everything down. But he goes, we should have one and then start writing an offense and a defense against whatever our topic is. You know, one night we might be talking like sexual abuse, 7 sticks versus sexual abuse, 7 sticks versus neglect, you know, 7 sticks versus abandonment. You know what I mean? So whatever it would be. But during it, I was going to show you the picture. But during it, he said, yeah, we should do that. So the very next meeting, we got there. Oh, there's our 7 sticks jerseys that we're going to be taking to Prague next year.
Right.
The very next meeting, we got there. We couldn't be in dressing room number 3 that we usually have the meetings in. So we were asked to move, and so they put us in the Rebels room, and the Rebels was the team that I started coaching when I got released from jail, you know, almost 10 years ago. And you know, it was a really I don't know where that got. Oh, here it is, right here. I'm not sure if you guys, I'll try to get as close as it, but could you see the 2 boards?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and then you can see the Rebels dressing room. Yeah. And then there's a pink jersey hanging in there. And I was really, really okay. So basically we get to the ILA that night. You know, there's we can't go in our regular dressing room. And then Barry, the guy that works, he said, why don't you go in number 3 or go in the Rebels room? And I said, all right, you know. So we go in there. And it was nice to see, you know, after coaching there, because I got out Sunday, December 11th, 2016. And by early January, I got the okay to be able to coach the Rebels, like the junior B team here. And, you know, to be a part of that pink jersey for women's cancer, like for breast cancer rather.
Right.
And then for to bring those boards in there, and this is where I was going to get to, like using this analogy, like for the young men here and older men. You know, one of them, the first thing that they came in was like they went out, had too many beers, stopped off at a Buck and Doe, and then had so much they don't even remember how they got home. And then so we started getting into it, you know, what had happened there, and so we used it I went over to the Rebels board that they had in the room, and I said, this is hypothetical here. I just wanted to show you guys something. So I went Rebels 1, Orangeville 4. Okay, back then that was our major competitor. So, so 4-1, end of the first period. What's the breakdown? Well, they scored 2 goals in transition, and they scored 2 power play goals. Okay, so as a team, when we look at that, because most of the guys in the room are lacrosse players, now what do we do that? So for the transition goals, okay, what do we need to do? Our O guys need to be reacting back. You know what I mean? Not lollygagging around trying to put the ball in the net. Just like in addiction, you need to be aware of your surroundings, aware of that 30-second clock, aware of your life clock, you know, aware of things that are moving around you, maybe drug dealers, maybe whatever, you know, maybe these guys trying to get off the bench so that they can get their old guy out the door. And we need to react to that, you know. So I said, that's how we're going to, you know, so now the offensive guy, that may be me. Yep, I'm not getting back. I know I should have been getting back sooner. I take accountability for that. I'm going to be getting back. I'm going to be watching the 30-second clock. So we've pinpointed what's wrong, who's done it, and how we're going to fix it. Now we get to the 2 power play goals. Well, you know what I mean? You two-handed the guy blatantly. Then the ref gave you the penalty. Then you told the ref to F off. You know what I mean? So basically, mental health or mental, like, keep your head, you know what I mean, and don't trip off to the ref. You know what you did wrong, go off and get it done, you know. And just that simple analogy there is such a connection for so many people, you know, for them to see it, for them to be able to tie it in sometimes is all it takes, you know. And then there's, you know, that's just one portion of it. You know, the major portion of the group, in the main thing that I want guys to be able to realize is that, you know, to be able to recognize what you did wrong, you know, be accountable for what's happened, and to be able to figure out a direction and how to not let it happen again. You know what I mean? And if it does, you know, let's go back out there and get it again. And that's why I really like the team aspect of it, the lacrosse aspect of it.
Right.
You know, just how we're all woven together. Like one of the members in the group talked to one lady who was sitting there, you know, and this is what we do. You know, instead of passing, I got eagle feathers right in here. Instead of passing the traditional eagle feather around like they do at a lot of indigenous-based meetings, like we pass a stick around,
Right.
that Austin provided, and you know, it gives the guys, and that's what we respect them when that player's holding the stick. We don't speak, and we don't speak over, we don't cross talk, you know, and we run a really structured meeting, and like some of the stuff that comes out of there is powerful. Oh, like you talk about the 10 big T's of trauma: physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, a parent being jailed, a parent with addiction, a parent with mental health in the family, divorce, and violence. And almost every guy in this res has half of that.
Yeah.
You know. And then, you know, some of the things I was referring back to that game and no one saw in there, you know what I mean? When I went into the stands there and I confronted the man that said all that. And then, you know, right away, the OLA wants to throw me out of lacrosse for life, you know? And, you know, like I said, I'm not dumb. You know what I mean? When I went there, I said, you know what? If you throw me out, that is such a reflection on the racist and the genocide that exists to this day.
Yep.
You're going to kick me out and you're going to let him stay in an arena after what he said? You're basically, because what they said was what I did in front of kids was not right. And it wasn't. But let's step back a step here. What provoked that?
Yeah.
What provoked that? You know what I mean? When you look at that, so basically you're condoning those racial slurs for those young kids to hear. And that's in those young early years, from birth in womb, you're impacted in womb. You know what I mean? Right till you're like 16, 17, those are the biggest learning years of our lives. The single traumas that happen there, the effects that they see. You become a product of your environment. If you're a part of a racist environment, how can you not become a racist? If you're a part of an addictive environment, how can you not become an addict? If you're part of such an unhealthy circle, like the book I'm reading now, I just finished, is called The Myth of Normal. The Myth of Normal. I grew up under the myth of normal. You know what I mean? Being 14 years old, playing for our senior B team, hanging out with men, my idols, thinking this is it. What do I see after every game? Every game, win or lose. Being that kid that drives them to the bar. What do I see? Can't go in, just sit out there, but I think I'm the cool kid because I'm the boy that doesn't even have a license and driving these guys to the bar, right? But I see him leave with women that 9 times out of 10 ain't their women. You know what I mean? And this is truth. You know what I mean? And then when I see, what do I see? The party, the drinking, the sex. And then this is no lie. Our community is so unhealthy. What do I see at 15 years old? Is sleeping with women 3 times my age. Because it's how unhealthy the whole community has gotten because of all of this. And and then so that's what I think is normal. That's what I think is normal. Despite I live with my mom and dad who were great parents, no history of any physical, sexual, emotional abuse. We were poor financially, but rich family-wise.
Right.
And but what did I become a product of? What I seen, of what I was around all the time. Even lacrosse. Something that I loved. I actually came to not even like for a while, and now I love it again. You know what I mean? When I see it as a vessel to give these guys a happiness that's greater than hoisting a man cup or a Minto cup. A happiness of a grandkid running into a room and giving you a hug. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's a win. A few weeks ago, I was asking my dad some questions about mental health and different things, and he was leaving, and he goes, what did he say? He goes, life. He goes, that's the toughest game to win. And I was really touched by that, and coming from him. Sorry about that. I'm just turn this ringer off here. My apologies. Yeah. Yes, and to be where we are today, to be able to travel to that Elise Herbeski Memorial Lacrosse tournament there and to be a part of that, to meet Yana, to have the conversations with her, and this was, I found out I was going just weeks before to be able to open the tournament with our Thanksgiving address, to give thanks for this game, this opportunity, to be able to spread this message of mental health and how important it is, and you look at that in even a team aspect, a well-oiled team that gets together is a very successful team, whether it be on a lacrosse floor, in a family, in a workplace. When people get around, when they're rested, when they're healthy mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, basically balanced, that's tough to beat. Really, really tough to beat. And honestly, the key to my sobriety, the key to what he is sitting here, and it's the maintenance of that that's so important. Look at every freaking thing I've said here to date in the last 20 minutes or something like that. It's the same thing we teach these kids on the floor. Isn't it awesome?
Yeah.
That lacrosse can do that, and then they can see that. Like, look how many, we've touched so far, and we've only been at it 79 games.
Right.
Ooh, I didn't even talk so much.
I want to touch a little bit about the early years of the Chiefs forming and your role there. I talk about character because character wins cups. Character is what builds teams and builds the bond on teams. Everybody's got scorers. Everybody's got the finesse guys. Character is what wins. What your role was with Six Nations was character. Yeah, people say, yeah, goon or whatever. I don't think so. You were known as one of the toughest players in the area, but I look at you as a protector of your teammates. It really is a foundational piece of the early Six Nations dynasty. A symbol of the culture and the pride of the way the game was played, the way it was supposed to be played. And now, of course, a respected elder and mentor within the game and within the culture and the society of the Revs. And I think that's all phenomenal. I remember watching you many, many years ago, and I loved your game because I loved, I was never the most talented guy out there, but, heart. You can never measure the heart of a man, but you can certainly see it when it is there. And you played with your heart on your sleeve, game in, game out, knowing your role and what to do. Talk to me about those early days of the Chiefs. And of course, the three-man cups is secondary to all of it. But just the camaraderie and knowing, you had Tavares, you had the Gates, you had the Kilgore, you had all these other guys, but your role was to make sure that these guys were getting in and doing their thing without getting hurt.
Yeah, it was. And then I didn't really anticipate that at first, that's going back a few years. Okay, yeah, so Earl Hill started the team there, and I remember him coming to say, if I start a senior A team here, would you stay here and help play, help get it going? And I said, yeah. And our first year, we weren't that successful, but we were making the connections to solidify, players to come here, and financial backing is always a plus for starting organizations, and we had that. And then but we also had a really good core of players in my father that people wanted to be a part of. Cap Bombery, you know what I mean? Guys like that were attractive to other players and coaches. So now you got the addition of Les Weekly, now you got the Kilgores, now you got JT accordingly, Mearns, Fennell, you're starting to really get some players here. We ended up winning a Man Cup. And when I got there, this is no lie, the first game we went to play Brooklyn Redmond, Sky McMichael, like we fought 7 times all together. And I'd say he won 4, just being honest. They're pretty good bouts there. But the very first games of senior, we played in Brooklyn. He rammed Cam Bombery into the boards. And he just turned around and looked at me, and it was on. You know what I mean? And so I gave her, and then at the end of the fight, he said, "Good fight, kid." You know what I mean? And we ended up, becoming actually good friends there. Even was asked to come to his funeral when he passed there. Talk about guys like characters. I didn't mean to be that, but I seen what was happening, and I seen what was happening to our good players. And man, they were getting beat on.
Yeah.
And they were getting beat on like they've never been beat on before. Because this was the key thing. And this is what is key to what molded that team together. They see now, I remember Troy especially, I'd say, man, I said, you don't got Brampton on your jersey now. I says, you got Six Nations, you're not going to get the calls. It's just as clear as day as that. You know what I mean? And so these guys started to see that. They started to understand and actually see, hey, man, we're almost blackballed playing for Six Nations. Yeah.
Right.
And then this is even a greater portion. I'm a little off topic here. Now they're driving through the community. Some of them are even working here. And now they're seeing some of the hardships that Indigenous people have actually endured and are living through. They're starting to see, holy smokes, this is what a res really is like. Now they're starting to get impacted at where they actually are, what they're actually playing for, what team they're actually playing for.
Right.
And now we went from like this to like, and then once they seen that, now we're just, you know what I mean? You look at those videos, that 60 miles video that one kid did. You know, when you see the effort in those like quarterly, like, just Doddridge's faces, like those guys, just every freaking thing they had. And that's what we did.
Right.
And when you play with guys like that, given everything they can, and now they can't give that. So now you start to look at it. Why can't they give that? Well, they got so-and-so and so-and-so that are beating the shit out of them and doing this to them, or trying to take them out of the game. And that's where it comes, you know what I mean, to that portion there. Like I never had to be told.
Right.
And I sure didn't have to be fucking asked. You know what I mean? When I seen it, I recognized it. And I looked after it. Not what, hey, I'm going to kick your ass. You know what I mean? Or you better watch out. No. It was right then, right now. Let's end it. You know what I mean? There's and I struggled with it. Like in the third year, our third man cup, I'd actually changed my number. Actually, the year that we didn't win it, to 10. I went from 9 to 10. And because I'd almost, at that time, I wasn't happy, like being a goon, the guy that, beat everybody up. And then years later, I really realized it, and then the comfort that gave those guys. And I just understood the game. You know what I mean? Being able to clear that space, just the way we were taught, all the way through our lives there. It just came so naturally that, to be that guy out there on the offense where our guys are getting beat up, and to be able to give them that peace of mind that they're not going to get their heads taken up, because they know that those other guys know. I don't even know why anybody would be afraid. You know what I mean? But they are, because they know that, hey, man, if you touch him, I'm coming right away.
Yeah.
And not lightly, heavily, because don't do it again. And it just used to upset me that they would try to hurt our guys so damn bad. You know what I mean? That we had to go to that level to keep on going. But if that's what it took back then that's what it took. And then now take it back now years later. It's funny that we brought this up. The guy that I'm about to mention right now, who will hopefully be coming to one of our meetings soon, during the same time period there, we both struggled. Darius Kilgore.
Right.
Darius runs a program out in New York there, involving kids as well, expressing, mental health and trying to be a better person and whatnot. And like he was telling me, like one thing that he goes, I waited. I'll get off topic again there. Like I waited my whole life to play in Queen's Park, to play a Man Cup against New Westminster. And I played 50-something seconds of that first Man Cup, and then I got ejected from the game in the whole series.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget walking across that wooden floor. You know what I mean? And throwing that ball, and just looking around at the surroundings, like being there for as in '82, then for the Minto Cup, and then coming back, and now we're playing a Man Cup in New West.
Yeah.
Like, whew, it was just like playing in the Forum in Montreal, and I threw the ball and I looked around, and you got Gate, Tavares, accordingly, and then I looked down, I see Corey Bomber, the player that would take over for me because I got suspended.
Right.
And he did. Oh, congratulations to him! He just got inducted into the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame this past year. I went and watched the induction, so I was really happy for him. Yeah, there's like it was like, with wooden sticks back then too. Oh, look at busted. Wear a face mask.
Yeah.
So it was come with no teeth. It comes with
comes with the territory. One of the things I like is with you coaching now, what it does in many ways, it represents the bridge between the traditional Haudenosaunee lacrosse values, old school physical box lacrosse culture, Indigenous political and cultural pride, and the modern rise of Indigenous excellence in sport globally, all wrapped in one. And you embody that and are actually the bridge, I think, in that respect. It's, your legacy isn't statistical, but it's cultural.
Yeah, like even with the coaching portion there, like when I got out of jail, I was asked by the Rebels to put in an application for a coaching position there. And at the same time, I know this sounds crazy, but I was also talking to Darius and to Rich and John about coming and joining Buffalo that same year. Can you imagine just getting out of jail and then going to either coach a junior B team or be a part of a major indoor lacrosse or national indoor lacrosse league team? And so can you imagine? So that's the decision I was kind of what direction to go here. And it's obvious the direction I took. But you know what? The reason I took it is I thought after all the stuff that I've been through, that I would have a more impactful place here in our territory.
Right.
Coaching Six Nations, coaching our young men, teaching them all the things that you were just talking about. You know what I mean? Like what you touched on was awesome. You touched on, like just all the parts of it rather than just winning.
Yeah.
Because I wrote an article recently, and it talks about we're so focused on winning, so dialed in on winning as coaches, is that we forget this portion of it, the healthiness of the actual player.
Right.
Fuck, all we care about is winning that cup. But what's going on with Johnny at home? How is things? You know what I mean? What's happened after? And there's always something that's at the root of it. And it was like coaching those boys. Oh, I wish we would have won. But it's lacrosse. It's life, right? Man, we got beat out by a defenseman. That was the only goal that he scored all year. But that's lacrosse, right? Isn't that the beauty of the game? But teaching those boys that, about being committed to each other, about being healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and carrying that onto the floor, it was a task. And it only fueled me to want to work with our young men even more.
Right. Also, you're also wearing the Six Nation colors means representing ancestors and community more than just being a team, more than about score. It's about the whole aspect of it, past, present, and future.
It is. You talk about past, present, and future, and you start getting into our 7 generational teachings, thinking about like our forefathers trying to make the decisions that were for us right now 7 generations ago. And that's why I implemented that name into our 7 Sticks logo that Austin and I came up with. I even have I'm Turtle Clan, so you can see the snapping turtle on my wrist there, but even have the 7 right in there. That's a snow snake. That's a game also played by our people. On this one here, I got lacrosse. I'm a Mohawk Turtle Clan. So you see this player here has 3 feathers coming out of his headdress, what signifies Mohawk of the Six Nations. And he's passing the ball to a little boy with a ball cap on. And, I got that one on there, so you're passing on the game to our future generations, our 7 generations. And that thinking there encompasses so much, being able to think about others and think about things in a different perspective. And it's a concept, yes, that we've like that I keep in mind a lot, and just that passing it down and using this game to do it, right? So,
right, and yeah, you're talking about, of course. And then number 7, which is often associated with, again, you're talking about the 7 generations teaching, responsibility to future generations, long-term stewardship of culture.
Exactly. Big word, stewardship of culture, yes.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And also the stick, and it's symbolized not just lacrosse itself, not merely sports equipment, but the sacred cultural object connected to the identity of the medicine, the
Oh
spirituality,
yeah.
all
Yeah.
of that entwined into one. So when, a lot has been said that you teach and you're very demanding of your players, but you're also in their corner for everything else. So it's the full idea of not just, I'm there for 60 minutes, but if
No,
these kids have a problem, they can confide and they have
exactly.
your trust and vice versa. It's that
Exactly.
camaraderie again.
And we teach them the no judgment there even, and like it's like I say, lacrosse, I love it again. When we seen each other in Prague there, it was a great conversation to run into you and just float out, and
Yeah.
I think I even shared a story about just, I was there and I was running a practice for Libya, you know what I mean, with some kids, 6 to 16. And
Mhm.
just before I walked on in the field, I got a message that my granddaughter was fighting for her life, and I couldn't call my daughter. I couldn't give her the messages I wanted or say the things I wanted to say because our family's fractured right now. And it really hurt me. But you know what? I went out there and I burned tobacco that I carried with me. And I went out there to give those kids, brush it off, just like we would have to do if,
Yeah.
we were in a game someplace, you know what I mean? To be present, because that's what they would want from me. I knew she was in the best place, McMaster Hospital. I knew
Right.
she was with her mom. And I knew she was prayed for. So I went out there and practiced with those kids, and we had a great time. And when you asked me what my favorite thing was there, and I told you, I don't know if you remember or not, but it was, we got done that practice, and all those kids gathered around, and the facilitator, the lady had told the kids what had happened, and my granddaughter was involved. And so we're getting ready to end there, and it would happen to be my birthday, April 23rd there, and all those kids got around, and they sang me happy birthday. And as I was looking into those kids' eyes, I seen both happiness, that I was there sharing the game, talking to them about it, and also compassion, because they knew that, my granddaughter wasn't well. And I just thought, well, look what this game has done. Look at it, how powerful. We cut up cake after, we all shared cake. Then I went back to the arena. Those kids, they gave me a jersey, and I wanted them all to sign it. So I got them all to sign it. I was holding it up for them to sign it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to get them to sign my shirt. So I got them to sign my 7-stick shirt. So all the kids all signed it too from the team. But just to see what it brings there. And, and to know that what you're talking about, those 7 generational teachings and the understanding of the game and the love of the game, that's what it was. And that's what I have now. And it just flows like this. Oh, I love it. I can't even, you probably can just see it, yeah, it's hard to believe, but it's all come from making a lot of mistakes. And you know what I mean? And I think that we're winning. I honestly do. And, but it's in those hardest lessons that we learn the most. Whew. Yes, and it's hard to say that we don't realize it at the time, but those are the tests. Do you know what I mean? When I look back at those man cups, do you know what I mean? I remember not even being able to play with my teammates and how beat up they were. 'Cause I'm not on the floor no more. You know what I mean? Illegal, like the slash marks on the back and everything. It's like, wow. It's a war. I loved it. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. You know what I mean? Man cups are my favorite.
Yeah.
Like 7 games, like series in such a short frame, and just beat the living crap out of each other and play for every loose ball, every opportunity that you can get. Sorry about I talked so much.
Not at all.
Oh, don't apologize.
I wouldn't trade this for the world. I told you when we were in Prague, is in a week full of really highs, and you were one of the highlights of my week, talking all kinds of things that I had the privilege of being able to sit down and talk with you, and that was really a highlight of the entire week for me, because I had a chance, go one-on-one, kind of like now where we're having just the conversation, but just to hear it And in person, you have that ambiance to you. I said it many times to other guests. You can't fake this stuff. If you fake it, people know it.
Yeah.
But to have the absolute, the passion, as well as the wherewithal, and because of the mistakes, to be able to be that mentor, see it, and also have the credibility to curb it. And all the people that you've been able to help because of that credibility, because of the mistakes that you've made. And they know that when you're saying something, it's like, don't do what I did.
Yeah.
This is what happened. This is what's going to happen. And you can see it. And it's the aura that exudes with you as well. And I it's a valuable piece. You say a number of times that, it was meant to be. And it was. All the
It
things,
was so meant to
all the
be.
trials and all the tribulations. And I told you the MO of this thing was always about getting the stories out and all the trials, the tribulations, and everything else, because once everybody's gone, they're gone. But if we can get them out, they stay forever.
Exactly.
And that's
Exactly.
the whole thing. Is it was meant to be for you to be that mentor, and for the Seven Sticks Foundation, for all the people you are helping and all the people you're going to help. And that's
Even
very, very important work.
it's just even now, like we just started an initiative like passing the ball. We called it 7-6 passing the ball to other indigenous communities or any community that would like to have us. Where we come in there, we actually present. We talk to the community like and see what they want specifically, because it can go in almost any direction. And that's what I really, really am proud to say about myself and about our group. And even Austin, for as young as he is, like like he's done a lot of work. Residential treatment. You know what I mean? Like different therapies. You know what I mean? Myself did the same thing, the same residential treatment I did.
Right.
And but it's just it's just been a really it's just been a heck of a journey this last little while, and like I say, falling in love with the game again. And don't get me wrong, like I miss being in a dressing room as a coaching part, but honestly, I really I like where I'm at. I'm happy where I'm at. Sure, I at least I get to go and be in a dressing room and have the meeting, and it's that feeling. But boy, I sure missing the energy in there and the excitement. You know what I mean, and knowing what it's like to go out there and play. I love the game. I love that no matter what was going on in my life. When I went out there and I looked at the team I was going out there with, I was fortunate enough to captain our Mental Cup team, and to play with the guys. I have the look in their eyes and the intensity, knowing our part. You know what I mean? Like some of the things I've been blessed being in the right place at the right time. When we got beat out by Orangeville, I didn't know what to say to my players. All of a sudden I get a message from Rich Kilgore, said some things, basically it won't be giving it to you. You're going to have to take it. Tell your players. So what did he say? Tell your players to trust trust the players, trust the coach, and trust the plan. Go kick some ass. And then I got a message from Darius, you know what I mean, saying some different things. What I'm thinking to myself? I'm walking around the bunny barn, you know what I mean, thinking, what am I going to say to these guys? I've said so much to them already. And all of a sudden, the messages are popping up on my phone from professional coaches, send a message to a junior B team, And then I got one from Johnny. I should pull them up and read them to you sometimes. I will, and because I save them. I actually sent one to Patrick Merrill a couple of days ago when he was coaching. I sent him all 3 messages as some incentive, because a lot of times I got messages from different guys, even to this day, Johnny, different people. And they're not messaging about what do you think the team should do.
Right.
You're not messaging about, what do you think about so-and-so? No. They're messaging for that mental comfort. That not so much about Tim. All of a sudden, just need something different. Well, listen to this story. This is no shit. we're playing against Brampton in we're Eastern Canadian Championship to go to the man, and it was you could cut the tension in that dressing room with a knife. Last week, and my dad, and Cap, and we weren't playing good, and all of a sudden I just said, I said, you know what, guys, we're going to do a tradition. We're going to sing a traditional native hymn, and they all looked like this, okay, Miles, so everybody joined hands. So we're all in Six Nations, like Gaylord Arena there. And we're holding hands and hun yo 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 hun yo 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 hun yo yo. They're all right into it now. Oh, come on, hun yo yo, and all of a sudden I go, jingle bells, and they're all just looking around. What the heck? I thought we were singing some traditional native hymn. But what I recognized, even as a younger player on that team, is that, man, we needed out. Remember where the hell we are.
Yeah, a little recess.
You know what I mean? So thick and negative stuff. Come on, let's pull ourselves out of here, shake it off, and go back out there and fucking go to town this period.
Yeah.
And if sometimes it was a fight that did it. Yeah. Sometimes I seen it. You know what I mean? And okay, here we go. Nobody had to tell me. It's like I said earlier. And it would change. Just like Dara said, it changed the Man Cup out there. You know what I mean? First game, first minute. He's gone.
You know what we got to do? We got to have you back on. Gary, I got a meeting in 10 minutes.
Okay.
I got a meeting in 10 minutes. Actually, it's ironic. I have I'm trying to put together indigenous veterans together in our Legion, and we're trying to welcome them. And I'm having a meeting today where I'm going to be the chair of listening to indigenous veterans who have a lot of grievances with the Legion. Indigenous people have grievances about a lot of things. There's a long line of them. So I'm trying to deal with a short list. And I appreciate, Miles, everything you do. I think the important thing that I heard here today is your work is to complete a circle, because in every circle, there's no end. With no end, the solutions continue. So exactly. That's the important thing about your work. Yeah. And I thank you for taking the time to come here. And I apologize that I'm on a schedule.
Oh, no worries.
I apologize. Anyway,
but we will definitely have a part two.
Well, yeah, we'll have you back. We'll have you back. And I apologize. Normally, I don't have anything going on after the show, but today is just a weird day. I actually had to get on the phone because I was being asked where I was. So I appreciate you being here, Miles General. He is Seven Sticks Men's Mental Health and Addictions Circle. As I said, complete the circle, make it work.
Exactly.
And this is the maker's hand doing this kind of stuff. Healing is a very important part of lacrosse. And Gary Groob, as usual, thanks for doing this. And may both of you find a lot of excitement in lacrosse. We've lost a season now. The season's over. We didn't talk about the Rock. Congratulations to the Rock, Gary. Congratulations to you as a big fan of the Rock.
Congratulations to the Rock, yeah.
And for those of you that watched this program, please believe Gary and I when we say we will have Miles back. We don't know exactly because our schedule does go deep. I think right now, Gary, we have a couple of months worth of shows right now going in. Yeah. So we'll just have to put Miles in there, down the road a piece. And I hope you're available when we can put you on.
I'll try to be. You know what I mean? It's an honor. It's a privilege, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be able to share today. I really am. I hope. And the one message I want to say is that before I do go is that if you're struggling and you need somebody to talk to, don't hesitate to reach out to me, Austin, anyone in my group, because we are here and we are a solid team. No doubt about that. We don't judgment. We're just here for you. And if anybody needs a hand, please don't hesitate to call.
I'll finish it by saying the reason that's true and why it's important is to realize anybody out there who's struggling, just try to remember you're never alone. You're a phone
Yes,
call or a
exactly.
walk away from somebody that can help you. And just a conversation. Don't let being alone be the problem. Reach out. You'll be surprised how much help you can find out there. Once again, gentlemen, Gary Groob and of course Miles General, thank you for doing this show. It was
Love
a
it.
pleasure. It was a pleasure listening to you tell us all the stuff that's behind the scenes with the game of lacrosse, and the indigenous challenges that are out there, and the challenges that men have and people have because of history. So thank you for handling that, and I wish you all the best. I truly do.
Thanks a lot, Frank. I appreciate that. I thank you too, Gary. I really appreciate the invite.
Oh, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure.
4:00 next Thursday, another show, folks.
Yeah.
And the tour of lacrosse continues. The game behind the game.